Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Father's Friday. I'm your host, Brian Anderson. This is a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn that is more of a conversation, really, between me and thought leaders, dads, moms, parents, you name it, around how do we help dads disconnect from their professional identities and reconnect with their families and their personal selves. Because let's face it, many of us are, raised thinking we got to be breadwinners, we got to be corporate leaders, and nothing is wrong with having those dreams, but our kids want us to be around too. So this week we've got Dan Singley, Dr. Singley, to those that don't know him as well. He is the director of the Center. Well, I shouldn't say just director, sorry, the founder of the Center for Men's Excellence in San Diego. It is a he is a board certified psychologist and has over 20 years of clinical experience working with men in this area. But he's not just a psychologist. He is a dad. He loves to cook, surf, read, all the things that make him a human being. And so I'm excited to throw some questions his way and get some of his insights on this subject. So Dan, thanks for being here.
Thanks, man. TGIF. Thank God I'm a father.
Ooh, nice spin. I like it. I like it.
Right? There we
Yeah,
are.
there we
No, thanks
go.
for having me on.
Yeah, so 20 years of this center and your work. What keeps you going? What drives your passion around fatherhood and connecting with dads?
So the old saying in psychology, research is me search. That's where it started. Um, I backed into this work right around the time I became a father. This is terrifying. This is one of those like chronological impossibilities. My now 20-year-old, because it can't be 20 years since he was born, obviously, but some would argue that in fact it's true, is when I first ever even heard about the psychology of men and looking at reproductive and perinatal mental health. And it's an area where there's just so much need. There are so many fathers who struggle and who get gender policed by themselves, by others, think that protect, provide, sacrifice means I'm superhuman. I can never ask for help. I can't have, feelings and so forth. And sure, we're seeing some changes along those lines that I think can translate to helping men. I think you said it really nicely, just to be more fully functioning human beings, while at the same time, that's not universal. Like we haven't accorded much respect to fathers kind of pulling the car over and saying, "Hey, I'm kind of struggling. Like I could really use some help with this." There's plenty of like cowboy up and suck it up and be a man. It's funny, like be a man means something very different to me than it
Sure.
does, when a sportscaster says it or something.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, psychology settings, very different than just, meeting up on a sports field or supermarket when you're running errands. But
Right.
what are some of those strategies that you work with, and what are the stories you're hearing from some clients around like the barriers to getting past this old way of thinking with man up or whatever?
Well, so my focus in fatherhood is my research is on the perinatal period. So reproductive psychology, the period of from about, conception to about a year or so postpartum. And one of the most common words that I hear from guys that are describing their experience during pregnancy, right around and including the birth and then in the immediate postpartum is, I felt invisible. I felt like it's like I was not important or a second class citizen. And there are plenty of people that turn around and say, yeah, but guys are the first class citizens and the ones that run the show all over the place. And I don't disagree with that in any way. And the fact remains that there are some very important pockets in society, like the perinatal mental health and family court and the educational system and the justice system, and there are a variety of different ways where men and fathers really struggle even while enjoying significant power and privilege in others. And for me, it's working with dads to sometimes just to have the words to name that dynamic tension. An area that I've become really passionate about lately is looking at what I see as the transformational power of compassion as it relates to fathers. We took part in a conference on this last week. It's a new outfit, the Men and Boys Compassion Initiative. But the basic point is that healthier fathers are better for fathers, their families, their children. Like there's no zero sum. There's no research, a really practical explanation to support a zero sum. If you're for fathers, you're anti parents of other genders. Like that's simply not that's not the case. Like Richard Reeves says it nice, like, hey, did civil rights hurt white people? No. Did allowing gay marriage hurt straight people? No. Does helping fathers and men hurt people of other genders? No. Like it
Right.
all like the rising tide floats all the boats. And for me, the compassion angle is working to help these fathers to understand ways that principally we don't show ourselves compassion. And so whether or not other people are showing compassion to us or we're showing compassion to them, it to me it's more fundamental. And I've been working with so many of these fathers, like, okay, so if you felt invisible, how did you interpret that? Well, I'm not important. I don't have anything to offer. Imposter syndrome as a father, for example. And so
Yeah.
first looking at, hey man, like what are those blocks like? So I'm a cognitive psychologist. What are you telling yourself? What are the words? Let's look at those. So principally that's a big piece of the work that my colleagues and I are doing here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, there's so many moments from my own life that keep popping up as you're talking when I've had those own or when I've had those similar thoughts or have heard other dads kind of express or not know how to express that kind of feeling of invisibility or even just inadequacy, right? Like I remember when my daughter was first born, my wife ran a quick errand and we didn't have milk saved up, right? We were just breastfeeding and she started getting hungry and I was like, I don't know what to do for you. We have to wait for mommy to come home, right? And there was just this like gut check, reality check of like, okay, right, I'm not always the center of attention. I'm not always the perfect solution to everything as a man. And how did that open doors for me to have that compassion? I love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say like you see a rising tide in the folks that are coming in, the dads that are coming in terms of like they're more open to this, or is there still kind of some rigidity there or holding on to old ways of thinking?
Both.
Yeah,
It's this is not a zero or a one or black or white. This is a very, very gray
yeah,
area, um, which has pluses and minuses to it. On the one hand, I definitely see, and there's a geographic component to this, right? We're in Southern California,
sure,
and so there, just frankly, on the coasts, there tends to be more awareness of and openness to mental health and mental health services. That's there are obviously places where that's not the case, but certainly in Southern California, like just part of the culture, there's there's more openness to it, although not certainly not for everyone.
right,
Um, and so we do have more men, more fathers who themselves are recognizing, hey, I thought this was going to be like this awesome time in my life, man. I've been super stoked about being a dad. However, it hit, and I don't feel connected to my baby. I'm really struggling in my relationship with my partner. I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling down. I periodically have disturbing thoughts about like shaking my baby or covering my baby's mouth, like these sorts of things. And
yeah,
instead of just like stuff it, I'm moving on. I'm seeing a lot more of the fathers themselves reaching out. But
great,
naturally, we still have plenty. I mean, nobody calls our office to brag about how awesome they're doing, right? So I have, in a
right,
way, kind of a skewed frame, and so I take
yeah,
ownership of that. But we
yeah,
also have plenty of other partners who recognize, hey, I was expecting more for and from my partner, my
right,
male partner, the dad,
yeah,
and he's not doing it. And what I will say is a huge difference from say like 10, 15 years ago. Like there's the trope of the, of the nagging wife and the husband that just wants to get away and go have drinks with the boys and martinis and cigars in the waiting room and all that. Those days are largely gone. Like sure, there are some folks are like that, but what I see much more is these fathers who, at the one hand, feel invisible, also feel very isolated and lonely and are not keeping up friendships and connections with other people, including other dads who have wisdom and experience to share with them. And
yeah,
so becoming that isolated itself causes him to try to get all of his intimacy, his social support, his connection needs met by his partner who may be struggling with postpartum depression or anxiety or psychosis and whatnot. And so that old trope, it is so much more common for these dads to come in and be like, "Oh, my wife just keeps telling me to like take my dog to the dog park or like go meet up with my friends, but like I don't want to, like
Yeah.
because bro dating is awkward,
Yeah.
but we still need it." And so like I see much more of that. The dads these days are terrified that their wives are going to leave them because they're not doing the things that they need to keep them healthy, and that's a major sea change.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you pointed that out because when I've talked with dads when I was doing research for my book and other things, so many dads would say stuff to that effect with me, but then followed up with, "But my dad didn't give me a pathway," right? There's not this archetype
The
or
modeling,
a
the
model, right,
modeling, yeah, exactly.
for us to follow. And so, yeah, we're in many ways charting new ground, which is both exciting because men like to explore and lead new paths, but also terrifying as hell because
we
we don't have a
we
model.
we
Yeah.
we tend not to like to explore when shame and our perception of having a man card is on the line. That's actually one of the most vulnerable and shameful moves. It's getting better, right? I don't mean to paint a picture that it's not. There's a slow trend. It's just I would like to see, like you said, more of the modeling. Like we're
Yeah.
seeing more about fathers being involved and being engaged. Like even the research on fatherhood for the longest time, the criteria that were being assessed were, does he live there and does he
Right.
contribute money and resources, and that was paternal involvement.
Right.
Whereas these days there's much more nuance around actually how's the father doing in terms of depression and anxiety. Is he changing diapers? Is he soothing and swaddling? Is he playing and engaging? Is he helping out with scheduling? And there's much more multidimensional research being done today, which then is setting the stage for clinical and programmatic work that addresses really kind of the full spectrum of what it means to be an engaged father these days.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I'm glad you pointed all this stuff out. But I'd also love to, before we run out of time, I'd love for you, if you're willing, to turn it around on yourself. And where have you found success in kind of modeling new ways of thinking for yourself and your son, who's now 20 and hopefully not getting married anytime soon, hopefully, still enjoying college or whatever. But how are you manifesting this in your own personal experience of fatherhood?
Yeah. So I got two kids. There's the one that's 20, and Jackson, if you're listening, don't even think about getting married. We'll put a pin in that for now.
Yeah.
I also got a 17-year-old who will be a senior in high school, and and I actually just wrote an entire blog post about this, like the difficulty of self compassion and being myself as a father. And one of the ways that I've worked to model what I see as critically important and is just like raw honesty is once when I author some kind of a dad fail, right? I spoke angrily to them, or I just completely misunderstood what their point was, or it just in some way sort of upset them. Um, I am really, really likely to take a little time, turn it around, and go to them with an honest apology, naming my behavior, expressing regret for it, and saying what I will do differently next time. And they know that that's what they're getting. I'm very unlikely to get dug in. I mean, there are cases where I'm like, kid, you're just wrong. Like, we can talk about it. But like, guess what? I'm your dad. I'm supposed to be the cold hard wall of reality in certain situations. But what I've definitely modeled for them is a willingness to be non-defensive about taking ownership. And my kids trust me. And my boys have seen that I'm imperfect and I will get upset. And I'm just because I'm a shrink and a fatherhood expert and all that I was just a dude before that. And they know we did family therapy around a series of issues in our family. And this is one of them, that it was very difficult for them that I would get kind of rigid, like Caucasian tiger dad mode. There's a right way and a wrong way and blah, blah, blah. And and I've learned, and they've seen me change, and they have changed along with me in terms of their ability to have compassion for me, because they know that I'm gonna come back around, even if it's not an easily wrapped up conflict, that I will still be there with them. Like they know that they can connect with me even when we're not agreeing about something. And that's very different than the you're a dude, you got to talk first, and you got to talk loudest, and you have all the data. And if the other person disagrees with you, like blah blah blah, and they're very empathetic boys. I'm really really proud of them for that.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hopefully you can share that with them offline, but also that they're watching this and learning a thing or two from their dad in his professional hat if they listen to you on that. But yeah, I want to just double down on what you just shared in case people missed that, because you just shared something really important, that even though you are a trained board certified psychiatrist, like you still went to therapy as a family, right? Like you were
Oh
not
yeah,
above this for yourself, right? Like this is
it
something that
was
we have access
it
to.
was tough. It was
Yeah,
it was very hard, but it was extremely important and really improved my relationship with the boys. I would do it all over again.
awesome. Well, we are getting close to time, and I don't want us to miss out on the wonderful dad joke that you prepared, because I'm sure you have plenty, having worked with so many dads and men over the years. So let's wrap up with the probably the best dad joke we'll ever hear. No pressure.
Oh, I mean, I don't actually have one. Well, so let me ask you this. You know about Murphy's Law,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever
Cool.
can go wrong will go wrong.
Right.
So one of my friends, Professor Brian Cole, he's at KU. Do you know about Cole's Law?
No, I don't know about Cole's Law.
That's really just shredded cabbage and mayonnaise.
Ah, I saw that coming. I saw that coming,
That
and I
that's
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
that's where we are. That's
That
where
is
we are
a
with
beautiful
this.
pun. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I did have the opportunity to drop that in a professional presentation right before my colleague Joanna Cole went on. And so it's nice to have the right cheesy dad joke and just
Oh
nail the
yeah.
situation.
Ah, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, thank you for giving us that moment and being with us today. Thank you all who tuned in to listen to this. Hopefully, you learned a little something from Dr. Singley and myself. We will be back next week with another fantastic speaker and parent and conversation. So until then, enjoy that dad joke. Hopefully, that'll take you through the weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
for having me on.